I never thought my life would become a story of heartbreak and revenge. I always believed that love was supposed to be patient, kind, and strong. But I learned the hard way that love can turn cruel when it meets selfishness. My name is Emily Carter. I am 35 years old and I live in Chicago. My life seemed perfect once. I had a loving husband, a beautiful home, and dreams that reached far beyond the skyline of this city. But everything shattered the moment I discovered that I could never have children. It started subtly. Michael, my husband, began changing. I noticed the smallest details first, how he would avoid eye contact when we talked about starting a family, the sighs that escaped him like secrets he couldn't hold anymore. I tried to be patient. I comforted him, telling him that life was still full of love and purpose even if we couldn't have a baby. But his patience for me was shorter than mine for him. The day he left, it was raining. I remember the sky reflecting my mood, grey and heavy. He didn't shout or throw accusations. He simply said, "I can't do this anymore, Emily. I want a family. I want children, and I can't be with someone who can't give me that." He walked out of our home, our life, and left me alone with memories that now felt like knives. My heart broke, but I didn't cry in front of him. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. In the weeks that followed, I lived in silence, carrying the invisible weight of his betrayal. Friends tried to comfort me, telling me that better days were coming, but my thoughts kept circling back to Michael, to how easily he could discard me, to how much he underestimated my strength. That's when the idea of revenge first flickered in my mind, not petty revenge, but a plan so carefully woven that he would feel the consequences of his choice every day of his life. I threw myself into work. I had always been a determined woman, but now my determination had a sharper edge. I started volunteering at a local children's center, mentoring kids who had no one to guide them. Their laughter, their innocence, their need for love, it lit a fire inside me. I couldn't give Michael the children he wanted, but I could give love, guidance, and hope to those who truly needed it. Every smile, every achievement of those kids felt like a quiet victory against the man who had abandoned me. Then life presented me with an unexpected opportunity. One of the children's families needed a foster mother temporarily. I hesitated at first, thinking I wasn't ready, but deep down I knew this was my chance. I opened my home to a little boy named Ryan. He was 7 with a shy smile and eyes that seemed too old for his age. His parents were going through a difficult time and he needed stability. I needed purpose. We needed each other. Living with Ryan was transformative. The way he clung to me at first, unsure and fearful, reminded me of all the things I thought I had lost. Slowly he opened up. I nurtured him, helped with homework, cooked his favorite meals, tucked him in at night. And somewhere along the way I realized something powerful. I was becoming the mother I never got to be. I was creating a bond stronger than any biological connection could offer. And Michael would never see it. He would never experience the joy of a child running to him with unconditional love, never feel the pride of a tiny hand holding his, never know the quiet satisfaction of being the center of someone's world. Months passed and Ryan's family situation stabilized. They were ready to take him back, but by then Ryan and I were inseparable. It hurt to let him go, but I knew this wasn't the end. I could foster again, help another child, and continue to build a life that was rich, meaningful, and independent of Michael. Every success I achieved, every life I touched was a subtle message to him. You left me, but I am thriving. You sought happiness elsewhere, but I am creating my own, and it is brighter than anything you could imagine. Then one day the news came that Michael had gotten engaged to a woman he met through his new job. The announcement wasn't personal, but I heard it anyway. His words were public, his joy broadcasted for everyone to see. But I didn't feel anger. I felt a strange satisfaction, a quiet triumph. He wanted children, he wanted a family, but he would never get what he wanted, not in the way he imagined, not in the depth of love he would miss every day. I continued to open my heart and home to children who needed a mother, to lives that needed guidance, and in that process I discovered my revenge wasn't in hurting Michael. My revenge was in flourishing without him. My revenge was in proving that his departure didn't define me. My revenge was in becoming someone irreplaceable, someone who could create life, nurture dreams, and leave a mark on the world, without him. The fire of betrayal had turned into the warmth of purpose, and Michael, who once thought he could leave and escape responsibility, would someday realize that the mother he abandoned had become the mother the world needed. And in that realization, there would be a bitter taste of loss, the kind that lingers and cannot be undone. Life moved forward in ways I never expected. After Michael left, I had feared emptiness, nights that stretched endlessly with memories and regrets. But those nights became my proving ground. I started investing more in myself, not in vain hope of catching his attention, but to rebuild a life so full and rich that he would someday wish he had never walked away. I took evening courses in child psychology, learning not just to care for children, but to understand them deeply. I wanted to become a woman who could heal, nurture, and shape lives, even if mine had been broken first. The next foster child who came into my life was different from Ryan. Her name was Lily, a 10-year-old girl with eyes wide with fear and mistrust. She had been moved from home to home, and no one had ever stayed long enough for her to believe that someone truly cared. I remembered how Michael had left me, without explanation, without care, and I approached Lily with patience, never rushing her, never demanding love. Slowly, she began to open up, and as she did, I felt the powerful satisfaction of creating a safe space for someone who needed it desperately. I started documenting our days, writing notes, capturing moments, keeping memories. It wasn't for social media, and it wasn't for recognition. It was for me, a silent record of how I had turned abandonment into purpose. Each laugh, each small victory, each night spent reading stories under the dim glow of a lamp reminded me that I was creating something Michael would never see. And it thrilled me to know that the family life he had demanded, the joy he had sought in a child, I was now experiencing fully in my own way, with children who needed me more than he ever would. Meanwhile, Michael's life seemed to follow a different path. I heard through mutual friends that his engagement wasn't going smoothly. The woman he chose expected a perfect family and a perfect life. When she learned he already had been married, even briefly, the tensions grew. And though I didn't rejoice in someone else's misfortune, I couldn't ignore the quiet satisfaction in knowing that the man who had walked out on me was now confronting complexities he hadn't anticipated. It was a subtle, slow revenge, living my life fully while his remained tangled in complications. My work with children became more than a hobby, it became my identity. I organized events, started mentoring programs, and even coordinated with local schools to ensure that children in foster care had access to resources and guidance. I was respected, admired, and trusted. Parents, teachers, and children alike began looking to me not just as a caregiver, but as a role model. And each time I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman transformed, not broken by betrayal but forged stronger because of it. The most satisfying moment came when Ryan, now older and wiser, called me Mom for the first time unprompted. There were no words to describe the thrill, the joy, and the quiet triumph of that moment. Michael had abandoned me for the chance to hold a child, but here I was, holding the hearts of children who truly needed love, and calling them mine in every way that mattered. I didn't need a legal certificate to validate the bond. Their trust, their laughter, their dependence on me, those were the proofs. Then came a turning point that I hadn't anticipated. Michael appeared at one of the charity events I organized for foster children. I hadn't expected to see him. He looked surprised, hesitant, even uneasy. He had heard of my work, of the children I had helped, and here I was confident, radiant, and fully alive. He tried to speak, perhaps to reconnect, perhaps to apologize, but I simply smiled politely. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his validation. My eyes, filled with quiet triumph, spoke louder than any words ever could. He left the event that day without a word, but I knew he had seen enough. The man who once claimed he couldn't stay with a woman who couldn't give him children now faced the reality that I had become a mother in every sense of the word. I had taken his abandonment, his betrayal, and transformed it into a life overflowing with love and purpose. My revenge wasn't loud or aggressive. It was lived quietly, every day, in the hearts of the children who called me Mom, in the homes I helped stabilize, and in the community that respected me. Months later, I received news that Michael's engagement had ended. The woman had left, unable to tolerate the pressures of his demands, his past, and the reality that life wasn't as simple as she imagined. It wasn't my doing, yet I felt a surge of satisfaction knowing that he had walked away from someone he thought he wanted, only to watch me thrive without him. I had won in ways he could never have imagined, through love, through compassion, through creating life in the form of children who depended on me. And then came the most profound realization: I was free. Free from the weight of his selfishness, free from the limitations he had imposed on me, free to live, love, and care on my own terms. The anger I once carried had transformed into purpose, and my sorrow had become a source of strength. I had become the mother he would always need, not because he wanted me, but because I had created a life so full, so meaningful, that his absence could never diminish it. Time has a strange way of teaching lessons, and mine came quietly without fanfare, but with a force stronger than any heartbreak I had endured. After years of abandonment, I had learned that life doesn't bend to cruelty, but it does reward resilience. Michael had walked away, leaving me with emptiness that could have consumed me. Instead, I filled that space with purpose, love, and strength. I had become the mother he could never be, not because I had children of my own, but because I gave life to children who truly needed it. By the time Lily's family regained stability and she returned to her parents, I had already prepared myself for the next chapter. I had taken on more foster children, some for weeks, some for months, each leaving a mark on my heart and shaping me into the woman I had always wanted to be, strong, compassionate, unshakable. I was no longer defined by what I couldn't have. I was defined by the love I gave, the lives I touched, and the life I built from the ruins Michael left behind. Then, almost like fate wanted to confront the past, Michael returned to my life. He didn't come knocking with apologies or explanations. He was at a community gala for foster care donors, a man who had once walked away from me because I couldn't give him a child. He saw me there, surrounded by laughter, by the warmth of children who called me mom without hesitation, by a community that respected and admired me. I felt no anger, only a quiet power. I had grown beyond the man who had dismissed me. He tried to speak to me cautiously, as if testing the waters. "Emily," he said, his voice hesitant, uncertain, "I've heard about everything you've done, the children, the programs, it's incredible." I smiled politely, feeling the surge of triumph wash over me. I didn't need his approval, didn't need his praise. My life was full, my heart was whole, and my purpose was clear. "I'm glad you're doing well," I replied softly, my voice calm but firm. "I've worked hard to create something meaningful, and I'm proud of it." He looked at me, searching for something, maybe a trace of regret, maybe a sign that I still longed for him, but he found only strength, confidence, and serenity. For the first time, Michael realized that leaving me had not broken me. It had made me unstoppable. The years passed, and I continued to thrive. I adopted one child permanently, a little boy named Ethan, whose parents were no longer able to care for him. Holding him in my arms, hearing him call me mom, feeling his trust and love, I understood something profound. My revenge had never been about hurting Michael or proving anything to the world. It had been about creating life, nurturing love, and showing myself that I could rise above betrayal. Michael's life, on the other hand, became a series of reminders of what he had lost. He sought happiness with another, but it was never the same. He realized slowly, painfully, that the family he wanted, the children, the love, the bond, could not be manufactured or forced. He had left the woman who could have given him not just love, but a home filled with warmth, and he had lost the chance to experience the profound joy of being a parent to children who cherished him unconditionally. But I didn't rub it in, I didn't need to. Life itself had become my message. Every holiday, every birthday, every quiet evening with Ethan or the children I cared for became my triumph. Michael's absence became irrelevant because I had created a life that was abundant, meaningful, and filled with love. The woman he underestimated had become a force he could never ignore, a mother in the truest sense, and a person whose life was richer, fuller, and infinitely more rewarding than the life he had chosen for himself. And so in the end, I learned the true nature of revenge. It wasn't about bitterness or punishment. It was about rising above the limitations others place on you, transforming pain into purpose and showing the world and yourself that nothing, not even betrayal, can diminish your power or your heart. Michael would always remember me, not because I sought revenge, but because I had become a mother, a nurturer, a woman who could create life and meaning where he had only seen emptiness. I had become everything he had wanted and more. I had become the mother he would always need, strong, compassionate, and untouchable by the selfishness that once threatened to destroy me. And in that realization, I found freedom, peace, and a triumph that no betrayal could ever take away.